All right, we'll continue our study of derivatives by going through a complete real-world problem. So the first thing I'm going to do is just look at what this function is doing. So let me switch to a different color here. And we're going to just examine what this function looks like at a few values. So I'll say when x is 0, 5, 10, 20, 30. And what we're finding is that at 5 days, we got 6.9 matches. At 10 days, 8.7. At 20 days, 9.8. And at 30 days, 10.4. And we can immediately notice how the early rate at which we were gathering matches was a lot higher in the beginning. Now, we can show this visually on a graph as well. So I'll set up my x-axis, and my x-axis is going to show the amount of days that have elapsed since we downloaded the app, and I'm going to say 20, 30 days out. And then the y-axis is going to capture the number of matches we've accumulated. Now, plotting the points we had earlier in the table on the graph reveals this interesting curve, right, where the slope of the curve in the beginning is a lot higher. And remember, slope is rise over run, and that slope is a lot steeper. We're having a lot more rise per unit of run than what we're seeing towards the later stage of this function. So notice how this behavior is working, because we're going to reference this later on when we calculate the derivative, the function of the derivative along the entire curve. So let's remind ourselves what our function is. This is going to be f of x. And I want to distribute that 10 so we can differentiate this in parts. So this is going to be minus 8x and then plus 0.05x. Okay, so let's differentiate this in parts. So the derivative of a constant is just going to be 0. We're going to move the negative 0.08x to the front using the power rule, and then recall that e to the x, the derivative of that is just e to the x. And then we have the 0.05 at the end there. So multiplying this out, we get 0.8 times e to the negative 0.08x plus 0.05. And this will be our derivative and our answer for part A. Now let's think about what this is saying, right? So at the beginning, when we first download the app, there's that early rush of excitement. That e is going to be to the 0, so that's basically 0.8 times 1 plus 0.05, so that's 0.85, which is a pretty good match rate. But let's see what happens when we're 100 days in. That exponentiated term is going to be 0, and then what remains is that 0.05, and that is a much lower match rate as we go on. So to answer the second part of this question, you are currently pulling 0.05 matches per day. But as you know, the gravitational pull of my profile is 9.8 matches per second squared. This actually makes part B a little bit of a trick question, because as long as I'm alive, the time for you to find a girlfriend using Hinge is effectively going to be infinite. That's going to be the answer to part B.